And so, speaking of going from Peru to Seattle, it's time to go from Peru to Seattle. Catch up with our buddy Nico Moreno, who is styling and profiling, looking as only as he can look. And here he is, as he's busting everything out. How are you, sir, as we break everything down in Major League Soccer?
What's going on, John? SDH family. Excited to be back as always. I'm doing all right, man. It's been a interesting weekend. Lots of soccer to watch. Got the chance to watch a couple of U.S. Open Cup games. A lot of soccer. A little tired. On cup number 2 of Joe. There it is.
Yeah. Uh-huh. Well, and I was discussing earlier in the show after the results, and we now know our final 8 in Open Cup and who's going where in the East and the West. How in the blue hell do you only make 3 penalties in 10 in a penalty kick shootout? I mean, obviously we can knock on the door with DC and Charlotte and ask Troy Lesane and Dean Smith how this happens. But you only convert 3 penalties in 10 to determine a winner. DC had a lead. Charlotte took the lead. Garrison Tubbs gets an equalizer. 90 minutes doesn't cover it. 120 doesn't cover it. You go to PKs and you only hit 3 of 10. I feel like both of these clubs should be banned from taking penalty kicks for it should be like be some kind of penalty kick it's like you get the penalty kick dunce cap. You get to sit in the corner and you get to wear the pointy dunce cap. You just literally you're staring at the wall. You don't get to take penalties until you get better at it. And we get to determine when that is. You only make 3 out of 10 in a penalty kick shootout situation to determine who gets to the round of 8. Both of those teams really should never have made it if you're going to be like that in penalties. Almost be like it was with Red Bulls and FCD, where, at least AJ Marcucci comes up big and at least, somebody made like 4 or 5. But when you only make 3 of 10 as 2 teams, neither team should advance, I think.
Yeah, I didn't watch this whole game, but I did see the PK shootout, obviously. And I don't think I've ever seen it before. I've seen it where all the shooters are so good that it goes 10, it goes 12, or maybe there's a little bit of um, dramatics and, one misses, one doesn't, and then it just kind of goes back and forth. But for all the PKs to be so poorly taken and it still go that far. I mean, it was surprising enough, but I guess it does tell you a little bit, like you said, about where each of these teams are. And I mean, there had to be a winner. So at the end of the day, someone was going to have to go through. And I think that's what happened.
Did there have to be a winner? Did, did there? Like I said, both of them should be banned from winning and advancing.
Oh, yeah, it was bad.
Just like, no, we'll go with 7. It's like, and somebody draws the straw to figure out who doesn't get to play. So no, we'll go with 7 from here on out. We obviously we're going to look at the weekend that will be in a bit, but when you look at what happened this past weekend with the Sounders, with whom you cover on a daily basis, what sticks in your mind from the previous weekend involving the Sounders and what happened last weekend before we get ready for what's going on this time as they get ready for FCD?
Yeah, look, it was a lot of components that kind of went into the entirety of the week. Let's stick to the rivalry to Portland, a 1-1-1 game, a 1-1 game that I think Seattle comes off with some mixed feelings. I thought they put up a very good performance, specifically to limit one of the best offenses in MLS, one of the most scoring teams in MLS. I thought Anthony came off the field upset, frustrated. That's a good sign for what Seattle did defensively. I thought Felipe Mora got put on a globe and not allowed to get out of there by Yemer Gomez Andrade. But there were moments that could have been better. The one real good chance that Portland got, it's the goal, unfortunately. Santiago Moreno is a guy that, if you give him that much room inside the 18, he's going to make you pay. And he did. But at the same time, I think Seattle continues to get better in their own identity with their own principles. Musovski, once again, not on the scoreboard, but with a goal contribution there. Nice pass to Albert Rusnák. Albert Rusnák puts it away. And look, Albert, for all of the criticism, all the hate, all the people that were upset about him getting a DP contract, the guys looked the par. right? I mean, 6 goals, 3 assists. I just put a tweet of if you compare him to Evander, to a guy like Forsberg, uh, Acosta, Lucho Acosta. I mean, he has numbers better than most of them, with the exception of Evander, and he's played less minutes than all of these guys. And I'm sure I can continue to go on and pull up other camps that are not contributing as much as he has. So I think the Sounders are where they should be. I think that Phil Neville felt lucky and was kind of hoping to end it at a draw in the last 15, 20 minutes, where the Sounders kind of got on the Timbers team. I think that individual performances were good. Christian Roldan was my man of the match. He was a baller, just all over the field, good on passing, sharp on the ball, winning every duel. I thought that when the substitutions came in, Pedro de la Vega did well. The one guy that maybe fell a little bit short was Ryan Kent. He did not have a stellar performance there. We had seen him be this difference maker, this game changer when he came off the bench. In this one, I think that it was just harder. With some of our friends of Lobby's Courtier said that after the game, he mentioned that he had never been in a road trip like this one. 3 games on the road. That's a lot of miles for a guy that's not used to that. Not sure if that's what kind of factor in of why he didn't have such a good game. I also think Portland did a great job at bracing him with a couple of players, making sure that he was always bracketed, that he wasn't able to get into space. But all in all, I think the Seattle Sounders came away with a good point, a 3 game road trip where they won one, lost one, tied one. And I think that's the minimum average. That's the minimum requirement. So they're right on the line. And now they move on. They'll host Dallas, and they'll try to take all the momentum and see what they can do with it.
What in the hell's going on with LA Galaxy?
Hey man, I think that I have come with the LA Galaxy where, like my guy from Boys to Men would say, it's the end of the road, and it's time to let it go. It really is. I do not. I had some sort of hope that they were going to figure it out, at least to make it to the playoffs. But right now, it just seems like even when things go right, they go wrong. They started right in El Tráfico. I'm thinking we talked about this being a trap game for LAFC. They're going to be able to do it, and they still can't hold on. I just think that there's a little bit of situations that I think we need to talk about. The acquisitions this year were younger. They haven't really come to fruition with Nacimiento and Sabrino. The guys that they brought in, I don't think have replaced those that left. I think that it is a team that has a hard time just managing the game in general. There's a lack of experience to a certain degree, and it almost feels like they're just ready to make a mistake, even when they have the lead. And we've talked about that. Even when they have the lead, it seems like they're just waiting for something to go wrong. And once that happens, everything just goes off the board. So um, I really do think that Greg Van is going to have to do some real soul searching, and he's got to get up here because it's a lot of it's got to be mental. They create chances. There is talent. You saw it at the beginning of that game, but they're just unable to kind of put it together when it comes to 90 minutes.
And LAG shows the ultimate in support for Greg with a contract extension, and they also give him support in the front office, both not just when it comes to personnel, but in the day to day and performance analysis. And so now Greg doesn't have to do it himself. What did you think about A, the extension, and then B, the support that he's going to be getting to help things out on and off the field?
Look, we talked about it. It was going to be compounding your problems if you let him go. At this point, you do get that cushion of that MLS trophy. You try to bring in some continuity. You're hoping that a guy that is experienced, that can develop players, can pull himself out of the hole. And let's say you don't make the playoffs. At least you have a guy that next year you can trust that he's going to figure out where the issues were, and using all those new resources can focus primarily on getting this club in the right direction. I don't hate it. I know that there's been a lot of criticism of why would you do that? There's no point of extending a guy that has the worst start in MLS history. And I get it that the discourse will be the discourse and people are going to be upset. But I do feel like it is a mature and settled decision for you to keep a guy like Greg Vanny. So I'm with it. I think it makes sense. We'll see how it plays out.
And then last week, when you were with us, we discussed what's going on with Messi and friends. And your, I'll say it this way, your position counselor on the issue with Messi and friends, I'm fairly certain that you probably got a decent amount of heat on it. But when Orlando and when the purple team sits there and they put another 3 on the board, and it's 2 of them are from familiar faces that have been doing it all season long, in Muriel and Pasalic. And then you get an oh by the way at 90 plus 4 and come away with a 3-0 win against Messi and friends. It once again shows that there are holes in that back line of the team down in Fort Lauderdale. I know that you don't necessarily sit there and tap dance on graves or anything like that when something like this happens, but you were not surprised, in looking at your social media during the match and after the match, you were not surprised that the 3-0 result for the purple team was the end result when that match was over.
No, you saw it coming. And when you have a team that has as many issues defensively going against a team that is in full form offensively, and you have a Luis Muriel that looks like the Luis Muriel of Serie A, you're going to have a bad day at the office. And that's exactly what happened. Beyond that, we go back to this dysfunction of mental lapses. Messi is arguing about a back pass to Galese, upset, yelling, blah, blah, trying to get the referee to understand people are worried about what's going on over here. Galese, one pass, one full shot across the entirety of your team behind your back line. He has all the real estate in the world to just position himself right in front of goal, sit away. And after the game, the antics, going back and trying to talk to the referees, Messi's putting his frustration where he shouldn't. He should be putting his frustration on the coaching staff, holding his teammates accountable, that defense, trying to figure out what it is that is wrong. You got to be a leader in certain ways. And look, I'm not criticizing Messi, the player. I'm criticizing Messi, the leader. You are the ultimate player in the league. You are the guy that's supposed to be pushing these guys through the thick and thin. You've been great when things have worked out. You need to be great when things don't. So I really do think that there's got to be some serious conversations between Jesus Macherano and the Super Friends, or the Fantastic Four, or whatever you want to call it. Those guys are the ones that need to have an all player meeting. Hey, what's going on? Let's push it together. Because a lot of those guys that were really good last season, as that Costellar group around that Fantastic Four, Kremaski, Bright, all of these guys, they have, I don't want to call it digression, because I mean they're still good players, but they just have seemed to take a at least one step back. And that is showing on the field. And defensively, man, you just got to figure out exactly what it is that you're going to do, and whether it's holding your fullbacks back or dropping Bright a lot more. You need to be so much more poised defensively. And that's got to be job one. How do we make sure that we don't concede as many goals as we have, regardless of what it does moving forward, or pushing forward, or getting in transition? But you got to figure out how to fill up all the holes that you have in the back end.
Yeah, the Gulfstream Galacticos get to the point to where they've re-signed Jordi Alba, and so you wonder who else is going to be re-signed going forward. Here was the lineup last time out against the purple team. Your back line was Noah Allen, Moxie Falcone, Gonzalo Lujan, and Ian Frey. Ian Frey, and this is the first time that I have seen a number this low. Ian Frey, according to our friends at SofaScore, punched a 5.9 on SofaScore. That's in 58 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, you take the number of minutes that Ian Frey played, move the decimal point over a slot, and that was his SofaScore rating. Here's what happened with Ian Frey: 1 pick, 1 tackle, 1 error leading to a shot, 2 of 6 on his ground duels, lost possession 9 times, 2 fouls, was fouled once himself, 18 of 21 passing, didn't have a cross, didn't have a long ball, had 1 shot off target. And that punched a 5.9 for Ian Frey in a lineup that had Yannick Bright, Sergi Busquets, Agende, Messi, Alba, and Suarez. So you had the Gulfstream Galacticos out there. You had them all out there. And you had Agende, Bright, Allen, Falcone, Lujan, Ian Frey, and Oscar Ustari going up against the purple team. And they took you out back. I mean, they took you out back. They grabbed that ruler that your granddad has, one of those old school rulers, that like 18 inches long that has the metal strip across the top. They took you out back, and they took you with that ruler, and they made sure that you were remembering what it was like to get hit by one of those things. I mean, I did not realize. I knew it was bad, but I didn't realize it was that bad, at least with one of your outside backs punching a 5.9 going up against the purple team.
Yeah, and it could have been 5 goals. It could have been a bigger beating with that same ruler, and it wasn't just because, I don't know, Orlando just didn't finish. There weren't as clinical as they should have been. But you talk about the starting lineup, you talk about that back line. When I first saw it, I'll admit, I said, well, you know what? I don't mind it. You're realizing that Jordi Alba cannot be a fullback that pushes forward as much as he does because he leaves so much room. So you play him more like a winger, sure. No Allen's going to be a stay at home. You're going to have 3 most times when you have possession. But even then, because Busquets had such a hard time moving and covering space, when Alba would get cut up top, there was so much room for them to push. And then Ian Frey, you talk about, I'm not a big stats guy. I'm trying to diversify myself. So I did get an app, and I'm trying to be a little bit more open to just that. But the eye test, Frey was the worst player on the field. And he got mollywopped by Angulo. I mean, Angulo took him to school, and it was consistent, and he couldn't hold on. And even in distribution, Prey couldn't really do it. So those are the things. Those are the players that last year, or if you go back to Tata, they seemed like they were at a different level. Right when they first started with Tata to when they progressed with Tata, Noah Allen, I thought, I don't want to be unfair to him. He's had a decent year, and he's come to play. I'm not going to blame him for the goals that happen. But at the end of the day, it's a collective, is what we've been talking about. And if this team doesn't realize that they got to play for the team and not for Messi or for Busquets or for Alba, they're going to continue to have this sort of issues. But don't let me get out of here without crediting Oscar Pereja and the team and the amount of talent that you have coming off the bench. You were bringing in Ramiro Enrique from off the bench, bringing Duncan Mawar off the bench. This team has so much talent, and Martin Ojeda, MVP candidate, has just been lights out. So I think Oscar's doing a great job. He understands what he needs out of this team. Doesn't need the ball. We're going to be effective. We're going to be direct, and they're a problem. And we talked about this. They were going to be a problem.
All right, let's go into the week that will be and take a couple of matchups that we have off the top of our head. Let's start with yours, since you're the first one in the barn, 3 o'clock Eastern time, so it's probably a 3:10 unless it's the super hyper mega pregame show from our friends at Big FOX. You're a minus 222 at home hosting FCD. FCD plays in the midweek, and they have to go from one end of the planet to the other. They're a plus 585 after losing to Red Bulls in Open Cup last night to take on Seattle at a minus 222. What do you think?
I think Seattle has to win. I think that they are the big dog in this one. They're definitely heavy favorites, in my opinion. You're coming from that 1-1 draw that you knew that you could have maybe done more on. Now you put those frustrations into Dallas. I saw the game between Dallas and Red Bulls yesterday. I was slightly surprised to see Petar Musa play 90 minutes. He had played 45 the game before that, first 45 since April 12th. We saw a little bit of Pomako. So there are some players that are getting back for him, but I feel like Dallas more than likely will rotate, or they will at least have a team with a lot of those guys missing. I know for a fact Lucho Acosta will not be playing this game as well. So to me, it's all on the Sounders. They gotta play their game. They gotta right off the bat control the tempo of the game. They got to be the protagonist. They got to put this Dallas team on their heels. They do have some players. They've been able to kind of put things together. Pedrinho is a guy that's kind of become a real creative guy, one of those guys that could really, aside from Acosta, of course, be one of those guys that could be all over the field. He's shifty. He's good on the one-on-ones. Peter Musa is going to be a problem, as he always is. So this is not a dud. This is not a team that's just going to come and just sit here against this Seattle Sounders team. But to me, when I look at the form currently that the Sounders are playing on, I think that Ryan Kent is going to want to put that Portland game behind him. He's going to want to show up. I think Pedro de la Vega, a guy who did not start against the Timbers, he's also just dying to get out there, score some goals, figure it out. Uh, I just think Seattle has all of the tools to win this game, and they should win this game at home. That's where things start off. You need to be good on the at home. They've done okay on the road, but at home is where you want to make it a fortress. I think that they have started to do that once again, and I think that they'll start here with Dallas.
You got to take care of business at home. LAG goes to San Diego to play at Snapdragon. LAG's north of plus 400. San Diego's a minus 169.
Woo! Okay. Oh man. Like I said, I hate to let it go, but it's a natural. No, I'm just saying I'm done with LA Galaxy. So I'm not taking LA Galaxy. I would love to just say, hey, this is what it is. But until they show me otherwise, I think San Diego, they have already put teams with defensive issues against the ropes. I feel like they're a very direct team. I like what they do offensively. They simplify their game. So I think San Diego wins this one, but I don't want to take the juice boxes. I'm going to say San Diego will win, and I'm not sure if it's going to be a high scoring affair either. I feel like if anything, LA Galaxy is going to want to stay in this game, so they might hold back their instinct to just push forward. But I think San Diego takes it.
All right, and so since we talked about Messi and friends and the Gulfstream Galacticos, they've got Philly next on the list, and they are a road dog at a plus 211. Draws a plus 267, and Philadelphia at home is a plus 114.
Ooh, man, that's an interesting one. And I only say it's interesting because I thought that Atlanta should have at least equalized against Philadelphia. And yes, I know that Philadelphia didn't put all their dogs right off the bat. Um, but Inter Miami, if anything, there will be a proud team going into this game, and Messi would not be ridiculed much longer. I feel like he sees that things are kind of going to start spiraling out of control after the game. I know he talked in MLS in Spanish, and he kind of talked about what needed to be done and the way they needed to figure it out. I believe it. So I like this game. I like the 211. What's the goal compost looking like? I'm guessing it'll be low.
All right, so let's find out and see what it lays out to here. Over and under. Let's see when it changes. So 2.5 is a minus 166. 3.5 is a plus 145. So if you're thinking it's going to be 3, it's a minus 101. 3.5 over under is a plus 145. So is it going to get to 2-2? I don't know if it is.
No, I don't like it. I don't like it. But I will say this: I feel like Philadelphia doesn't necessarily have the tools in the flanks to make Miami as uncomfortable as they can. Neither in transition. So because of that, I'm going to go ahead and go with Inter Miami in this one. I think that they'll be ready to go with a chip on their shoulder. Maybe that's what they need, is instead of playing by being the team like that runs around like the Beatles all around just in their tour, they should be more playing with a chip on their shoulder. I think that they will against Philadelphia.
All right, last one I want to talk to you about is obviously Atlanta. Atlanta hosting FC Cincinnati on Sunday Night Soccer. Atlanta is favored, slight favorite, at a plus 145. Draws a plus 258, and FC Cincinnati on the road is a plus 166. So FC Cincinnati is a slight dog. Atlanta United is a slight favorite on Sunday Night Soccer.
Yeah, I like Cincinnati in this one, man. And again, I hate to say it because I want Atlanta to do right by Atlanta fan base and do right by their talent on the field. But Cincinnati, just at this particular moment in time, they just seem to have guys that are going to be able to kill this game sooner than later. Uh, I'm going to say, and I'll go about the first half. I feel like Cincinnati would already be on top of Atlanta. I like what I've seen out of Denke, out of Evander. I like the way they push numbers forward, still by keeping a pretty decent shape. I thought that Columbus game was very interesting. It was 1-1, but it was an entertaining 1-1. It's not a 1-1 that I'm like, man, what did I just watch? No, it was pretty consistent. It was back and forth. It was a chess match. I like what this Cincinnati team has to offer. And Atlanta, as much as I see what they want to do, and in the last 10 minutes of that game, they could potentially have gotten an equalizer against Philadelphia. You won't have that opportunity against Cincinnati. Against Cincinnati, either you put them on their heels or they're going to be on you. And I feel like that's what's going to happen in this one. I see Cincinnati winning this one by a couple of goals, unfortunately.
All right, so what's going on at Pulso Sports and at Sounder at Heart that folks need to know about as we head into a very, very busy weekend before we get into even more schedule compression?
Yes, the best one in Pulso Sports right now, and it will go up in about 2 hours, is a tactical talk with Andy Rose, the assistant coach, obviously part of Brian Spencer's coaching staff. I like to call him the defensive guy. He's the one that works in the set pieces, works with the center backs, works on the build outs. So we had a really good conversation. If you have 20 minutes of your time, because it's a long one, go ahead and check it out. You will not be disappointed. He goes into strategy, difference between playing with a 3-man back line to a 4-man back line, talks about the young guy in Stuart Hawkins that is in the middle of all these center backs. He has all this talent, but cannot get any minutes. We talk about Kim Ki-hee and the surprise he's been coming in as an experienced player. And now he's kind of pushing, or not kind of, he's definitely pushing Jackson Reagan for his spot. Jackson Reagan should be available this weekend. He's going to want his job back, but it won't be easy because Kim has looked really good. So we talked to Andy Rose about that and so much more. Go ahead and check it out. It's going to be up in about 2 hours. And then, of course, on Friday, we're going to have our usual What We Learned This Week with Jeremiah in the Sounder Heart Podcast Network. And then on Monday, of course, kickoff with Lobbin Scorchers at 8 a.m. Pacific time through 9:15, 9:20, depending on how long we go.
As always, my friend, great to see you on Thursdays. Enjoy the action this weekend. We'll be keeping an eye and we'll be catching back up with you this time next week in the middle of schedule compression, where it's going to be a quick turn talking about all kinds of stuff. As always, love you very much, my friend. We'll see you soon.